and welcome to another session on the SosoBone Media Network. And this afternoon, we hope that you have the time and the patience to accept some of our observations, and hope that from the very many comments that we have received in the past, you will continue to police us as we try to police sports. Because we would like to say, without any apology, we represent the fans. And this afternoon, I'm going to turn you over to our esteemed host, none other than the secretary to the First World Cricket Hall of Fame, the Honorable Dale Brown, and our other panelist, host of John Sports Corner, inductee into the First World Cricket Hall of Fame, the Honorable John Melbourne. And over to you, Brother Dale.
I thank you very much, Sir Trevor, and welcome to everyone who is listening / watching. And I'm honored and humbled to be here in the company of two Hall of Famers, Cricket Hall of Famers. The first being what we would consider a man who was the voice of New York for many, many years, over 40 years. He has been the voice of New York, bringing sports to the citizens and citizenship of New York. Mr. John Melbourne, himself a 2018 inductee to the Cricket Hall of Fame in recognition for his sterling work in sports and particularly in cricket as a broadcaster. And we also have a newly minted Hall of Famer, class of 2025, the venerable Professor Sir Trevor SosoBone Smith. And it's really a pleasure for me to be in the company of these two wonderful and outstanding gentlemen. We aim to educate, not so much to entertain, but to educate and let come from a different perspective with our views, which will be founded and rooted in facts, so that persons can listen to us and understand things that they may not have paid much attention to. And with that, welcome, gentlemen. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Brother Dale.
Thank you so much, Dale.
Yes, sir. Now, Brother John, we're going to just switch off a little bit. Speaking of switch, we're going to look at a very hot topic for this week, which is the switch of allegiance for athletes, that international track and field athletes, and actually it was 11 elite athletes that were affected, and we know the country that tried to rope them in, so to speak, was Turkey. John, what was your reaction to the action that World Athletics took in regards to this these 11 athletes switching allegiance?
Well, I'll tell you, I am kind of surprised that they didn't approve of the switching of allegiance. And I say that because just last week, I saw where World Athletics have adjusted the allegiance rules to make it a little more difficult to switch allegiance. And they had said March 27th, 2026 was the effective date. And that they would process applications prior to March 27th. So I was kind of surprised that they took the decision to, I don't want to call it block, but not approve the applications. In some quarters, there are some people who are a little bit peeved that the athletes' applications have been blocked, because in Jamaica terms, they say they're boxing up food out of the athlete's mouth, because the kind of money that Turkey was going to pay these athletes, Jamaica does not have that kind of money. And so, there are some quarters I know in Jamaica, they're upset that the World Athletics have taken this position to prevent the athletes from switching allegiance. But and correct me if I am wrong, Dale, but how Turkey had approached trying to have these athletes switch allegiance. In other sports, there are clear lines of athletes born somewhere in one country, able to represent another country then. And you have to have some kind of a connection through either marriage or what you call parenthood, in order to apply to be a citizen of another country. And so I was kind of surprised that Turkey would try to, I guess, use money to try to gain an Olympic advantage, basically, because what they are trying to do is build an Olympic team with athletes from other countries in order to win medals in the next 2028 Olympics coming up and beyond. As opposed to what the collaboration between Jamaica now and Kenya, where they're going to be coaching, training their coaches, Jamaica training sprint coaches in Kenya, Kenya training long distance coaches in Jamaica, to develop your athletes internally. And the question is, what if Turkey had gone after Ilian Thompson or a Kishian Thompson, or even Oblique Seville, and World Athletics had approved it. A part of this, though, panel is there are some people who say, these athletes, they don't love Jamaica. But the long and short of it is not a question of whether you love Jamaica or not, or love your country. It's a question of economics. And track and field is so different to football and cricket. In football and cricket, you can sign with clubs, and chances are you might have a 2-year contract, a 5-year contract, and that has certain stipulations in there if you get hurt, if you're not able to play because of injury, whatever. In track and field, and the contract is guaranteed for a specific period. Athletes don't have this. Athletes, in order to earn money, they have to be. Some of them are signed by the major athletic wear companies, and even in those cases, there are a lot of stipulations that does not benefit an athlete. For instance, if he or she gets hurt, and so yes, you have clubs, but you don't have that kind of long-term contract as in football or in cricket. So when a country comes along now and say, I'm going to pay you $300,000 a year plus training expenses and other benefits, how can you not say, but I can plan some kind of future with that kind of money? I mean, Panel, that right now in Jamaica, if you're earning 300,000 US or more, it can go a long way to plan your future, to take care of your family. And so, it's a situation now that World Athletics has, if you want to say, put a rope around. But then, now the question is, what next? Will there be an appeal by the athletes. And if there's an appeal and they lose that appeal, it goes even further now to the Court of Arbitration for Sports, and how they would look at it, or what kind of rule they might how they would rule on that appeal. So, but I think it's an interesting conundrum that that is facing world athletics now, and we'll see how they hold their ground. That's my take on it. So at this point, Dale.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. And Sir Professor, you have heard the question. Anything you need for me to repeat? But
No,
I'd
no,
love
no,
to.
no, 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 no. There's a lot on the table. Let's cut the fat and get down to the bone. We're not talking about slavery here again, and we're not going back down that road. Because what we're talking about is treating our people like they're commodity. Okay? So you offer them, you put the money on the table, and today it is Turkey who wants this athlete, and another country wants the same athlete, and now we put them on the auction block and you start bidding. So now our people becomes commodity. The question is, who has the most value for our talent, or for our product, or our services? Our country. No. Nobody says that any of these athletes could not continue in the country and make a decent living. Nobody says that they are not comparable to other people in our country who are making a decent living. The fact that they might be divers and they're sharks in the water mean that they cannot go diving, but they're still gonna keep on living. Okay? So we might not be as developed as a Turkey, but it means that any of the talents that we have developed in any capacity, anybody who has the money walks in and takes them, because money talks and the community dies. We have that going on with our teachers. We don't have this citizenship come into the picture. We have it going on with our nurses, our intensive care nurses. We don't have the citizenship thing come into the picture. But the question is, what are our athletes worth to our community? If it was Pele down in Brazil, they say he's a natural treasure. He can't go anywhere. But our people, they're not national treasures until what? Until they become a Pele? So the baby is not as important as the adult. Because the adult can work and generate taxes, but the baby, no, they don't count. So we talk about the super athlete, and you want my super athlete, and we who is supposed to be a mentor and a brand for those coming behind in our community, who sees a performance and want to excel to be a Usain Bolt. They say, no, he's not here anymore. They bought him. They bought him. Okay, so who is left? Well, what about Shelley? Oh, they bought her too. So really? So who is left? Well, those who think is not worth anything. Because the very act of buying 10 of our athletes and not buying 100 of our athletes, you're saying that these 10 are worth money and the rest of them, we have no use for them. So no, I do not know why any organization should have the rights to actually sit down and say they're going to block our athletes from doing anything on the other hand, because they don't own them. I don't care which organization you want to form, you can retire anytime, and those athletes can retire anytime, and they cannot tell them they can't retire. So if you can't tell them they can't retire, how can you tell them they cannot go to Turkey? It doesn't change the fact that I think they're cheating or people like slaves. I want a strong male slave. Okay, I have one for sale. That is how we end up in this pickle in the Caribbean. They wanted strong people to come and work for them. Now we have a reverse taking place. They want our best to come and work for them. Citizenship for them is working. We're going to pay you to run. We're going to pay you to swim, to dive, to jump. And if you break your foot, well, we have to have a conversation. Because after you break your foot, you really don't have much value to me, A product. Okay? So no, the whole idea that this thing is not addressed as a national issue. Okay? How can I have the best coach in Jamaica and another country come and say we want your best coach, and now we have a second best coach coaching our Jamaican team, and we allow him to get go? What is his value to the team? Well, I'm going to tell you this: if you want to get one of our top athletes, just the position of branding that we have invested in him to the point where he is, just the position that he holds as a mentor to the children who idolize him, I'm going to ask you to give me $100 billion to invest in my community, because that is what we value at. That is what we are losing. Okay? We're not losing the present. We're losing the future development that is going to inspire in our children. Okay? So no, if you're prepared to give me $100 billion, that is his that is his parking fee. If you can't give me that, take a walk. That is my foot on that.
Thank you, Sir Trevor. And we should remind our viewers that precedent has been set by all international sport to protect the athletes from whatever you want to call it, but let's just say poaching, where a rich country cannot just go in and take from a less developed country and just give money to an athlete to represent them. Whether that athlete is a footballer, soccer player, basketball player, cricketer, they all have residency and transfer of allegiance requirements. And these requirements are in place for years, for a very long time. I mean, soccer is very serious because if you play more than 3 international games for the initial country, you're not going to get a transfer of allegiance. So once it is established that you are playing for country A, they are not going to allow you with these things. So sometimes we come down on especially cricket authorities, and we see a governing body now saying, listen, no, one country, it's one thing if you went after one athlete or even 2, but they went after 11. And all 11 of them are world-class athletes, elite athletes, all of them are in the top 20 of their respective events. They're all elite athletes. So, I thank you, gentlemen, for looking at it. We had 5 Kenyans, 4 Jamaicans, as John mentioned, the partnership now between Kenya and Jamaica. And persons may say Jamaica didn't do this for the athlete or didn't do that for the athlete, but the athletes came from somewhere, and somebody invested some hard-earned cash in those athletes. And I think I agree with the gentleman in saying, we have to follow the money trail and see whether or not this falls under the category of poaching, which is what World Athletics is saying. They used a private club, a club in Turkey, to initiate all of this on behalf of the government. So they see it as a recruitment, because you're not supposed to recruit. That is the key. You're not supposed to recruit athletes. The athletes should want to switch for whatever reason, but not for recruitment reasons. And that's the bottom line of that. So I thank you very much. And John, do you have anything to add to what we have been saying, in addition to what you said originally?
Not really, Dale. But as you said, somebody had put in the work to bring our athletes to this stage, to be Olympians, to be Olympian medalists. And it's unfortunate, I guess, that those persons are also not being rewarded for for bringing the athletes to that stage. But there has to be, you have to draw a line. If not, what happens now if Turkey, if World Athletics didn't draw a line, and people are saying, oh, it's not nothing because you don't have no. It's not a question of whether you love Jamaica or you don't love Jamaica. But there are people out there who look at you as traitors of wanting to sign with another country. But there's the other side of economics, and you have to look at it openly. But you also have to follow the rules of allegiance. If there are rules, then you have to follow the rules. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens if the athletes appeal and if it goes as far as to the Court of Arbitration for Sports, as I mentioned before, and how they would rule or will rule, But we shall see.
And your closing thoughts on that, Professor?
Well, because of the confusion that we find that both sides have salient good points. So the question is, as I said earlier in reference to the government, this is not a private issue because we are talking about giving up nationality to get nationality. And I have to approve you're giving up your nationality, as a government of Jamaica. Okay? The government of Jamaica have to approve it. Just like they approve any export that is coming out of the country. Why would they not approve you exporting bauxite, banana, bami? And when it comes to our people, they don't have any voice, any control over that. They have the right to veto. No, walk in and tell me that you have a contract with this. No. This is a Jamaican citizen. Okay? And if he renounces his citizenship, we're going to have what we call a diplomatic conflict with the country. Okay? I am going to call in the Turkish ambassador and say you have 24 hours. 24 hours to get your turkey out of my coffee. Okay? Because your piracy is not allowed here. Okay? Piracy is not allowed.
Thank you, Professor. And as we speak a little bit about development, a few weeks ago, a group named S.M.N Sports Group went into Jamaica and they purchased a franchise to take part in the CPL. And as we know, Jamaica has been without a franchise for a few years now. And we are now saying, listen, what does this new franchise have to offer Jamaica in terms of the development of cricket on the island? So, John, I'll ask you your first thoughts on the announcement that we now have a new franchise in Jamaica with a different name. Used to be Talawas, it's now Kingsmen. And what are your thoughts on that, and to some extent your expectations?
It has nothing to do with development, deal. The bringing a franchise to play cricket in Jamaica only has to do with a competition and maybe some tourism if they can get visitors from other countries to come in to watch the games. Outside of that, it has nothing to do with development. And if our cricket administrators really want to talk development, then let us go to start from the primary school. Now, if Kingsmen is bringing in loot that is geared towards cricket development in primary high schools through to under 19 then level, then we welcome that. But a franchise cricketer play what, 4 games maybe in Jamaica, and then they're gone. That has nothing to do with development. And when we have our tourism minister or whoever, or our sports minister jumping on board and making a big deal, and our president, Jamaica Cricket Board president, but then you're not hearing them talk about development at junior levels. Franchise is not going to bring development. Franchise, you play what, 4 or 5 games and that's it, and you're gone. I mean, it was unfortunate when we and what is it now that is so different between Kingsmen and Talawas? It's alleged that the government didn't support Talawas as one would have hoped. Are they supporting Kingsmen then? As that, are they giving the Kingsmen what they didn't give Talawas? And if so, then are the Kingsmen giving them something that the Talawas management didn't? So, perhaps these are the things we need to find out. What is Kingsmen doing that Talawas didn't do? And that's how I feel about this franchise thing, Dale.
Okay, thank you very much. Just for the listeners, and before I give Trevor a chance to give his views, according to the Minister of Sport, Honorable Babsy Grange, she mentioned the same points that you raised, John, although they did not go into details about development, but she mentioned developing grassroots cricket and how much money they are going to pump into cricket in Jamaica. So, Professor, what are your thoughts and what are you looking out for to see whether or not any improvements will be seen in those areas?
Well, as members of the media, the fact that we are talking about this and we are ignorant of the facts make the fish very, very fishy. Okay? The fact that as media persons, we do not have those answers to the questions that John raised makes it smell. Because those are so positive that those should have been on the front step of the building. The first thing the gentleman who bought the, and I don't have a problem with the gentleman, the fact is he is investing. And investment is only driven by one thing: money, not development. Okay? Not development. And he knows he's coming into an environment where there is problem concerning development. So when we are talking about cricket on our networks, we speak about the lack of development. We talk about how many high schools were playing cricket 10 years ago, and how many high schools are playing cricket now. And it is not an increase that we speak about. Brother Dale, I'm sure we'll have some very good data as to how many were playing cricket 10 years ago to how many are playing cricket now. It has gone down slope. So we were not talking about that we needed another T20 franchise in Jamaica. Okay? We are talking about what sports brings to our children. Discipline, social interaction, less murders and more playing more games. So is it any wonder that as cricket has taken a dive, that the murder rate in Jamaica was spiking out of control? Don't we look at exact that there's a correlation between children not playing together and what they do when they don't play together? They are not developing the social skills that we are not telling them to shake hands and let's play in the spirit of the game, because they are not teaching them that in high school and in primary school anymore. So when something happen, we're gonna hear some bad man start saying, me no afraid of nobody. And that is what the children are hearing. Me no afraid of nobody. And where is that coming from? That is coming from my Prime Minister in Parliament. And we're not saying, hold on a second. The example that you're setting is the one we teach our children in primary school when they're playing jacks, hopscotch, dominoes, netball, baseball, football, that we are playing a game to develop our social skills. Okay? Not to go to war, but to become diplomats, to become ambassadors. So instead of making it outrageous and conflicting remarks, you should be saying, we're going to send our consul generals when they come back into our country. We're going to send them to our schools so they can tell the children about what it is like to be a consul general. I'm going to send them into our schools to tell them what it was like to be an ambassador. Okay? And the skills that you need so you can be sent abroad to represent our country. Not talking about somebody trying to steal you, but we voluntarily send you to be an ambassador to Turkey. Okay? We voluntarily send you to be an ambassador to the United States because we have trained you well. That is where we should be looking when somebody come into our country and they say they want to invest in our country. If it is backside, they talk about how many jobs they're going to create, how many clinics they're going to put in the community, how many schools they're going to benefit, how many houses are going to build up in the community. That is for investment. Well, cricket, T20 cricket is an investment. That is all it is. A man who has the money come and say, yes, this is prime property, I want to build a hotel on it, and I'm going to employ 500 people. It is an investment. So when I see the tourism minister, as John said, jumping for joy and talking about his face break out in smiles like he just won the Powerball, like, hold on a second. When we were talking about development, you were missing. Missing. And all the time that we listen to our Prime Minister when he's talking about development in Jamaica, we don't have sports high on the agenda. Apart from champs, after champs. But every time the reggae boys get close, they start rubbing their hand. All they see is the money. All they see is the money. When the Olympic comes to get close, yes, they see the money. Even to the extent that even some of our athletes who bring back the money, when they put it in the bank, they can't find it afterwards. Okay? Our athletes who make the money that we're talking about, they're making in cricket. We got a Usain Bolt who make that type of money, bring it home, put it in our banks, and it's missing. So how can money be the attraction? When you bring the money home and you can't find it afterwards, and they tell you that, somebody was sleeping on the job and, they erased the number of the blackboard, so it went from 5 million to 0. No. Investments must impact our people. And I would like to say to my sports minister, you put it out there on the school schedule that this injection is not only going to hurt the arm, but it's going to benefit the brain. Okay? It's not a one-shot thing. Okay? Because when you throw a stone into a pond, we talk about the ripple effects. The stone drops in one spot, but the ripple spreads to eternity. You don't see where the ripple stops. Okay? And we have to treat everyone who comes into our atmosphere that everything you do touches every member of my island. Okay? You might think it does not. But everything you do reflects on everyone who is in the island. Therefore, we want to make it very visible to our people. Just make it visible to our people. We're not asking for harm on two legs. I'm just saying, if you come here with an intention to benefit the island, show us. Because we know that in the final analysis, when you have an investment, when you play 5 games in the island and you make your money, if you don't live there, you're not leaving the money behind. That money is not staying in the island to be reinvested in the island and circulated like farmers who live there. Okay? That money goes out of the island with the foreign exchange that we send in from our remissions abroad. Okay? That is why they have money for you to take out. We send down 4 billion. And you realize that you can have money to take out because money comes in. If there was no foreign exchange for you to take out, there would be no investment in Jamaica. Because no one has an interest in keeping their money in Jamaica. Especially Usain Bolt.
Thank you, Professor. Now, John, you mentioned the development, and we speak about that. And as you quite rightly point out, any type of discussion about development must start at the primary school level or even before that. The kids have to be introduced to the sports. The sport minister said that there will be development, but we have never seen any clear cut plans implemented that we can say, okay, now they have the money to fund it. We don't know what plans they are. We don't know what areas of the development. Grassroots is a very general term. Development is a very general word, nothing specific. And I would love to hear specific numbers because we know how many teams are contesting the Grace Shield for the urban area schools and how many teams are contesting the rural area championships, which is the Headley Cup. And between the two, urban and rural, it was only 35 teams for the regular one-day game. And now for the T20 game, it's only 37. So we're seeing reduction overall in participation. And I would love to hear, John, and if you know anything there, you can shed light on it. What games are the children playing? And what is this Ministry of Sports plans or ISA's plan to get more youth at the high school and primary school level where the government is concerned to participate in cricket? We don't have a problem in track and field, but we certainly have a big problem in cricket. And your additional thoughts on that, John?
Well, I think it's not, it's not only cricket, deal. I think the big question is how much interest does our government have in sports? Because everything now is placed on track and field. But what about cricket, football, other sports? And I want to say what I want to channel us to is start with the Trelawney complex, the Mobay complex, how those two venues have fallen into disrepair. And really, I think if our government was interested in the sports development, they would not have allowed these two venues to fall into disrepair because they could be venues that are being used to help to develop our youngsters in whatever sport. And even in track and field, because you look at the Montego Bay complex. For years now, it has not there's been no track meets there because the track isn't any good. And so, I can say even in track and field, they're not interested in development. It's more the coaches and the clubs and the high schools who are interested in developing our youngsters, but not the government. So as far as I'm concerned. And if they were interested in development, then why you allow the Montego Bay Sports Complex? Is it a cow parcel or a parking lot that has become? If it was being properly maintained, for instance, you have your Western relays. It could be used so much in the development of our athletes in that area of the country, or to the Trelawney complex. We have our national stadium, but I think the national stadium might be falling into overuse because it's the only venue, for instance, that meets FIFA standards in terms of football. We should have another venue, which should be the Montego Bay Sports Complex. That you bring up an international game to Jamaica is not always played at the National Stadium, but you can play at the Montego Bay Sports Complex also, and expose that area of the country to international football, so to speak, and they don't always have to be traveling from there to Kingston in order to see international football. And it goes in with the cricket. You look at it, the complex in Trelawney was built, it was 2007 World Cup? But what has happened to that since then? So, so the development goes beyond just our primary school and youngsters. It goes into the venues in which these youngsters are able to perform. And if you don't have proper venues for them to perform in, then what's the use?
Okay, thank you, John. Professor, John has expounded and brought up several topics there, and we know development, has to start with participation. And the truth be told, many of our students play soccer. Many of our students participate in track and field. The participation is extremely low in cricket compared to, say, 20, 30 years ago. And people have their different opinions as to why this is, why it has come down to this. But John, in speaking about the stadium, whether the Catherine Hall, the one in Fulani, and lest we forget, at least 2 facilities were built for the football program and presented to JFF, and they are both in ruins now today. So we get these gifts and we don't maintain them. So, Professor, your comments on that?
Well, brother, I have to take it for granted that they don't know how to manage the problem or to fix the problem. Because if I don't do that, then I'm going to say they know what to do, but they are deliberately undermining the development in the island. Okay? So I have to come to the conclusion that they do not know how to fix the problem. Because if they know to fix the problem and they are doing nothing about it, then we have a right to impeach them. Okay, now, whether we want to talk about development and they say it's a money issue, okay, we have a Ministry of Sports. All sports falls under that ministry. We have a Ministry of Agriculture. All islands for agriculture all fall under that ministry. Education, finance, same thing. So, I have to hold the Ministry of Sports or the Minister of Sports or the ministry accountable. Okay? Not that one finger has nail polish on it and I pay you for 5 fingers. Okay? So don't talk about champs to me. Everybody see champs. What happened to the other 5 fingers? Aren't they part of your responsibility? Aren't you supposed to give an update in Parliament on the development of the various sports in Jamaica? Or do you just talk about all the girls them doing well at champs and we have a nice group going getting ready for the Olympics? Where does the responsibility stop for the Ministry of Sports where sports is concerned? Since we're talking about the fact that cricket, soccer, they get these gifts and then the gifts becomes fresh apples becomes rotten apples. Now, we talk about the investment of a cricket team. Are there any plans for them to have exhibition games in Trelawney? So that not everything is centered in Kingston? Maybe it's a good idea that we stop having prime ministers from the corporate area and try to find one who live in Westmoreland, or maybe one who live in St. Ann or in Portland, So they might think it's important to develop those areas. Okay? To develop, because they see the children in those areas. The only time a child in Portland might see the Prime Minister is if you have a look, somebody is about to lose in the election and they come to campaign there for them. I don't see any other pictures. I don't see any pictures of the sports minister down in St. Elizabeth at a cricket field or a soccer team that is playing, or when Cornwall is playing in Montego Bay and you say, oh, the honorable sports minister is attending the game. I don't see any pictures of that. Maybe my 2020 is gone to 20, maybe I'm not 2020. So all I'm saying to the sports minister is, prove me wrong. I'm not accusing you. I'm just saying, prove me wrong. I don't see the Prime Minister at a Denby cricket match because it's important for him to stand as a shining example to the students watching them play. Prove me wrong. All I'm asking you to do, that when the Minister of Tourism says that we have 3 million tourists coming into Jamaica, and therefore we want to develop cricket, a pipeline to go into Talawa, Kingsman Talawa. We said that every tourist that comes into Jamaica, the government is going to propose a $2 head tax that goes towards sports development. So when you have 3 million tourists comes in for the year, you have $6 million US that goes towards sports development. That is the only time I want to see the Minister of Tourism up there dancing, because there's a franchise coming in. That is going to say that when they come in, we're not talking about watching the game. We're talking about how much the head tax is going to be. Doing the maths. And that's going into all the parishes. That you make a commitment from the investor that every game we bring in 10 bus load of students to attend that game, and they're coming in for free. And we rotate it among our schools. We have the buses that Darrell Bras brought down there. Some of them will start.
Okay.
I think it goes a little bit further than you talk about sports development. Sorry about that, Neil. For example, there is a under 16 netball tournament Caribbean going on now in Trinidad. And Jamaica is not there because they don't have the funds. You mean the government can't put together funds to send an under 16 netball team to Trinidad to play in a Caribbean tournament? And it goes towards development in netball youth level, because our under 16, some of them are going to be our next Sunshine Girl stars. But you have to expose them early to the international environment, and sending them to a Caribbean tournament is part of that development. So, so how interested is this government in sports development? And I can't see it.
I thank you very much, John. And if you remember, in addition to the facility at Catherine Hall, which the last time we haven't had a track meet there since 2019. That's a very long time ago.
Oh yeah.
And to further illustrate your point, for those who don't know, the Milo Western Relays was specifically geared for the Western region. And matter of fact, the inception of it was at Cornwall College, on the grass track there, the true oval at Cornwall. It then moved to Catherine Hall once Catherine Hall was built, and stayed there until the place came in a state of, the track was no longer safe for the athletes to run on. And you got promises after promises after promises for the last 7 years. The stadium track, quite rightly so, has been repaired. But now the Milo Western Relays is now held in St. Catherine. And it got so bad that this year the track at GC Foster was not available. So there was no Milo Western Relays. And that's a sad reflection on whatever we want to call it, government or whatever, involvement in our sport. To make matters worse, John, our beloved Western Regional Championships, which is specific for the schools in the West, specific to the county of Cornwall. For the past 2 years, the finals, well, year number one, that was last year, the finals were held at GC Foster College in St. Catherine. This year, the entire meet was held. Although it was a one-day affair, it was also held at GC Foster. So now even the regional meet, for whatever reason, is now being held in St. Catherine. On top of that, the schools have to travel to about 8 meets to Kingston each year. It costs a lot of money. And I can assure you that those funds do not come from the government. I would say at least 75, 80% of that money comes from the generosity of the alumni associations of these schools.
Mhm.
And that is the truth.
But dear,
Yes.
you talk about GC Foster. The track is was supposed to be redone. And from my information, the material to redo the track had been sitting on the wharf, I think, since last year sometime. And the government doesn't get involved to say, no, man, let's get this out. We have to get that track repaired because you need that track. Why, until today, the track has not been relaid because of various, what do you call it now, setbacks or things not being able to be cleared off the wharf. And I think I heard a report earlier this week that there is some of the material, because it has been on the wharf for so long, they are charging like an extra tax to GC Foster to have the stuff on the wharf. Why does that happen? Where is the government? This is part of the development of sports, you know.
Yes, and those are valid points, John. And development, as we say, people are using that word very broadly without being definitive in what they are actually talking about, because there are many facets to development, facets to it. And, you know, we can look at the participation. That's one very important, because you need, you know, participation, but then you need to sustain it and you need to make it available and give to the children, give them the opportunity to participate and to develop their skills. And you need coaches, you need all of these things. But we don't see, as you're pointing out, John, we do not see a really active government looking out to make sure that we're moving in the right direction where these things are concerned. And as we speak about the development, we will switch over a little bit quickly to the new format introduced by Cricket West Indies for the 4-day championships. And we have seen a great reduction in the number of matches that will be played. And just to put some numbers to it, last year there were some 28 matches played. This year, if you count the practice game that's going to be played towards the end of the season, it will be 12 matches that will be played. If you don't count that match, it will be 11. So we're talking about, let's just round it off, 60% reduction in the number of matches that will be played. John, what are your thoughts on the new format?
To be quite honest with you, Dale, I don't quite understand this new format. Because, let's start with Jamaica. We just played Barbados. But we're playing Barbados again on Tuesday. Mark, you're playing them on a different at a different venue, a different surface, which I suppose is good for the cricketers, that they're playing on different surfaces. But why are we playing? Are we going to be playing the other territories too? I don't think, very honest, I don't think I quite understand this so-called new format. But
Okay, if you want, I can just give you a quick explanation.
yeah,
You know, first of all, last year we had 8 teams, including
yeah,
the academy
CCC,
and
and yeah.
the West Indies Academy. This year,
Mm-hmm,
they dropped them out of the competition, so we are focusing back on 6 teams.
mm-hmm,
What they did was pre-seed the 6 teams based on their ranking, how they finished last year. So Guyana won it last year, they will be number one, and so on and so forth.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So one will play 6 for 3 matches, two will play 5 for 3 matches, and 3 and 4 will play against each other for 3 matches. At the end of those matches, that's what, nine matches. At the end of those games, the number one team in points will go straight to the finals.
Mm-hmm.
The second and third team, according to the point standing, will play each other in a semi-final to determine who will advance to the final to meet the number one team.
Mm-hmm.
While the number one team is waiting for all of these wonderful things to happen, they will have a practice match against the combined campuses.
Mm-hmm.
So basically that's it.
So it means that if in the 3 games, I lose the 3 games,
Mhm.
and a player like, I'm going to call a name, like let's say John Campbell. Okay, Jamaica loses 3 games. It means that John Campbell has only played 3 competitive cricket matches. How can we develop our cricket like that? How can we develop our players to meet international standards based on the setup? And at the end of the last World Cup, I heard we made a lot of money. But now I hear we're broke. If my information is correct, I thought I heard we made like 300 million or something like that there from the last World
I
Cup.
heard something like that, but obviously it's something is wrong with that math.
With the math.
Yeah.
Are those audited numbers? But in seriousness, how can our cricket develop in that our, especially our frontline cricketers? I mean, you look at English county cricket. How many games English county cricketers play? And I'm not even talking now those who play Test cricket or one international cricket, just county cricket, eh? As opposed to us playing 3 games.
Yeah.
And then you get to the international stage, and you can't handle the batting, can't handle the bowling, and the first thing that comes out of the mouth of some fans, oh, is they're not good. But it's not a question that these players are not good. They are just not being developed to meet international standards. To me, that's just plain and simple.
Yes, and that's a very important point to raise, John, because again, some players are only going to get to play 3 matches.
Mm-hmm.
Some are going to get to play 4. And at best, you get to play 5.
Mm-hmm.
At best, the 2 finalists will get to play 5 games. So that is a problem. And I'll go over to Professor. You heard the format and your comments on it, sir?
Well, the question is this format after an extended season of cricket, like a 50 match season or a 30 match season, where at that point you say the last six, the top six teams with the highest points, they now are in a round robin playoff, just like we have in basketball in the NBA. Because the only way you're going to be able to say you're seeding teams is because you have gone through a period of time when the points have been accumulated. How can number one team have 20 points if they never played any games? How can number 6 only have 5 points when they didn't play any games? If the first game they're going to play is against a team that they give 20 points to, how did you get those 20 points? It cannot be on the past season because half the players on the number one team got traded to another team or they retired. So the teams therefore cannot be identified as identical to what their makeup was in the last season that they played. So how did you therefore come to this conclusion that you're going to change what you had that was not working? Because if it was working, you'd be crazy to say you're changing it. So you're saying what we were doing before, we were not catching any fish. So we're going to change the bait. And we have the data to prove it. We put a lot of worms in the water, and the fish are vegetarians. They won't eat it. You did a feasibility study, and the fish told you, we change our diet. So on the strength of that feasibility study, you can say, no, we're going to change the season to this format because we have data to back it up. We did this survey. We did this study. We look at the results of all the surveys that we did. And we came to the conclusion that it is better for black men to play basketball because white men can't jump. So, on that basis, people will accept that the data proves the man right. Now, when you talk about number one team playing number 6 team, we have seen that in USCPL, Kingston Mumbai, last year, when two came from the bottom of the barrel, and they got hot in the playoffs. Was it 2 years in a row, brother Deal? Got hot in the playoffs and took home the trophy. They went up against a 10-3 team, and they were 3-10. So now you said that, no. So on that basis, therefore, you have a one playing 6. And it is seeded so that one is supposed to sweep 6, 2 is supposed to sweep 5, and 3 and 4 are the balanced teams in the middle. Okay? And if you ever have 1 beat 6, 6 beat 1, you're talking about an upset of the century. And don't they know that they're supposed to lose? Okay? So I have to ask, how did you come to the conclusion that changing what you were doing before to this system is going to produce a better result, or maybe the last system, because it upset the apple cart, you want to make sure that the teams you want to win are in the finals. Just like in World Cup, they want to make sure that India and Pakistan butted at a certain point because there's money in that game. So I have to ask them to come to our platform. I would like to invite the chairman of the board to come sit down with us and justify the change. Because as fans of the game, we would like to know what we are getting for our money. And since you are the CEO and you made the decision, please explain to us how you are going to justify your decision, so we decide to give you a check. Because if what you give us is the same thing as last year, then that is bouncing. And we never gave you a check. We gave you a credit card and we gave you cash. I need justification. So I would invite Mr. Shallow, Mr. Shearing, Mr. Bennett, anybody who said that, they check on them to find out if this is acceptable. And if Mr. Bennett said, no, they never asked me a thing about it, I said, well, who made the decision? And if Mr. Shallow said, no, I had no input into it, then I said, who made the decision? because I want to know who to hold accountable. And I want to know who to compliment if it works.
So, we talk about the cricket, and let's say Cricket West Indies don't have the money to play home and away series. A series home and away games. That means the six territories going to play 10 games, plus maybe semi-final and final, whoever gets there. As I said, they might not have the money to move the teams from island to island to island. However, why not? And I don't know if CARICOM should get involved. Sometimes you hear CARICOM running them out about cricket, but maybe they need to be putting more money in our cricket. And bring the six territories to one country. I mean, say you bring them to Jamaica. You have Lucas, you have Kensington, Melbourne, Sabina can play cricket. And I don't know if there's another venue. And you have the six countries in the island, and they play home and away. So they're going to be playing at least 10 games. A cricketer is going to be playing 10 games. And it might generate, on the long run, the tourist industry too can benefit from it by having cricket being played, our international cricket being played at these venues here, for over an extended period of 6 weeks or however many weeks it takes. Hotels going to benefit, of course, Or you go to Trinidad with the six territories, or to Guyana, and you play in the one country because you can't afford to be moving teams from country to country. Or you can bring them into one territory and play the games. And to help with development and play and go back to the home and away, see that players know they're going to play at least 10 games. You cannot play 3 games and expect to compete at the international level. It's not going to work. It cannot work. And whoever come up with that scenario, I get, they play more cricket than I do, so I guess they know more than me, Dale and Trevor. So, but it can't work. It cannot work. If you're talking about development, if you're talking about just giving some guys something to do to play some cricket, that's one thing. But if you're talking about developing a youngster, it can't work. 3 games just can't work.
So, John, given what you just said, I do not believe, I will just throw this out there, that the reasoning for doing it could not be cricketing reasons. It must be something else. And you're hitting on it and touching on it. It must be financial reasons why they are doing it. Because cricket-wise, it does not make any sense. And when you get, let's say, number 1 playing number 6, or whichever series it is, you have 3 matches. And this is a mismatch. And one team just destroys the opponent, which is more likely like with Guyana against the Windward. How is that going to benefit Guyana? How is that going to benefit their players' preparation for a higher level of games? And I'll ask you this, John, is it a matter of a financial problem that they're trying to solve with this type of compromise, and not a cricketing problem?
It has to be financial because they said there's what they call it, stress for cash.
Okay.
But at the same time, as I say, well, you hear our CARICOM leaders talking so much about the cricket and criticizing. Maybe CARICOM as a group should be putting more money then into the cricket. And to finance the cricket and help in the development of our players.
So, Professor, John and I are pointing towards financial constraints being the reasoning behind this, what I would say, radical switch. Your thoughts on that, sir?
Well, my opinion is the opposite. I do not think there's any shortage of cash in the West Indies. I I will recognize that there's a problem with disappearing cash. but but not with a shortage of cash. Because every time I hear that cash disappear, they were not saying that they were short of cash, that's why it disappeared. It was excess cash. It is excess cash that we heard of disappear. Regardless of which island we are looking at. I'm not pointing at any one particular island. Somebody always use the C word. Corruption. 300 million. Okay, I will not question where the money went. If when I go on the website, I see a detailed, itemized spending report where every dollar was spent. Transparency. All you hear is that, oh, we short of money, and guess who is suffering? The people who makes the game possible. The people who creates the ability for the money to be there. The man who is supposed to drive the bus from Kingston to Montego Bay, that's the man that told him that the bus too full. Okay? The players. If they want to get the players from island to island, you're only gonna have maybe 3 players from Jamaica going to the place you want them to go to. You're only gonna have maybe 2 or 1 from Grenada or 2, 3 from Barbados or from Guyana. Airlines come between those places. What does it cost for you to have an arrangement with the airline to have some complimentary tickets to fly them from ABC to ABC to XYZ? And all you're saying is that we will compensate you for your generosity by having your logo on the shirts as they play. We're talking about marketing. Okay? We're talking about marketing. How many players from Jamaica is going to go join the team? 3 or 4? So you only have 4 airline tickets coming out to Jamaica. And the place that they're going to, guess what? They don't need any airline tickets because nobody's coming out of those places to come back into those places. You know, I don't want to talk about the art of the deal, because that is not really working out. But I am saying, I have to question whether or not they know what they're doing. And I'm asking them to prove to me that they know what they're doing. Subject to lack of proof, I am saying that they don't know how to run their department. What other conclusion can I come to? If you tell me to drive the bus, but the bus end up in the river, I have to scratch my head for believing you. If you cannot drive across the flat bridge without going into the river, I cannot recommend that you get another license. That is how I feel about the decisions they make. Because we are saying, we're not talking about a 1-year hiccup, or even a 2-year flu, or a 3-year Melissa. well, Melissa is more than 10 years. But I am saying is, we have been talking about this lack of focus, and I don't want to send Mr. Mike Chambers down here to go teach the mind power all over the West. But as a matter of fact, he did offer it to them, Maybe I have to call Mr. Shallow or Mr. Shering. Because if mind power is going to work, then I'm going to say, ask Mr. Mike to give up the executive director job and come teach them mind power down in the West Indies. Well, that might be a little bit difficult. Let me look at something easier. But
I think the cricket president have the mind power book.
But I am saying that I do not want our listeners and our fans to continue indefinitely believing in people who do not believe in themselves. And after many years, they said that we do not believe in what we were doing. And so we would like to make a change. And I said, okay, did you have a reason to choose the players on the team that you're choosing now and rejecting the ones you had before? Or did you use the same formula to select these players? How did you make a decision not to bring 3 spin bowlers and 4 fast bowlers, to bring in 5 fast bowlers and 3 spin bowlers? How did you come to that decision? Don't tell me you roll no dice. Don't tell me just roll the dice. How did you make a decision to change your opening batsman? How did you make that decision so you expected different results? Don't tell me you roll the dice. We would like to know that when I go to bet, I have solid confidence that the man who changed the team, I know he knew what he was doing. If I'm buying the Powerball when I'm betting on 2 teams, I'm in a lot of trouble. I need a 50-50 chance as to who is going to win. And if you cannot tell me that you have 2 teams playing, and I ask you, so who you think is gonna win? You tell me, well, I don't think any of them is gonna win, so none of them gonna get paid. Nobody didn't win, so nobody gets paid. No, I need transparency for how they make their decisions. And if you have 10 people on the board, tell me it was a 7-3 decision. That's how the Supreme Court rules. Okay? 6-4 and 4 against. 5 and 5 and we are deadlocked. Tell us that you are deadlocked and therefore, it's up to luck. Because we would like to see changes in our sports across the West Indies. Not just in cricket, because everyone we speak to tell us that the people who are in charge of the country has no idea as to the value of sports, its contribution to the country, and how they should go about doing their jobs. And as a result, some guy with money on the outside comes in, look at your playing field and say, if I invest some money here, I will make some money. And I'll tell you, if he does not make any money, you count to 10 and he's gone. And another guy come and say, well, they have good talent here, but they don't know how to use them. I am going to buy them. And the government say, how much will they give me? And, somebody's trying to make a deal on the side to make it go through without any fanfare. And I'm saying the media has a job. Hold them accountable. Call for transparency. Call for some resignation. You can't tell me that you have been in Tivoli Garden as the Prime Minister, as a Member of Parliament for 37 years. And when they elect you, they don't like you to leave. Have you ever tried leaving? Have you ever tried leaving? The same thing goes for our presidents of various sports teams down there. Except for the clubs who are putting themselves on the line and developing talent, we cannot give the government credit for any development in sport. They take credit for development in agriculture. They have a new plan named NARA. I don't remember what NARA stands for. They have a new plan for tourism. Listen, my friend Ed Bartlett was smiling like a Cheshire cat. He turned to him and he said, listen, I am going to market to the North America. We have many Bengalese over there, many Pakistani over there, many Indians over there. He never mentioned the diaspora once, but that's okay. Maybe my ears missed that part. And that's the first time I've seen him embracing cricket in the last how many years? Because a man came to put some money on the table. And we have been putting our children on the table for the last 20 years and nobody pays them any mind. So when we say we want development in schools, so our children can be disciplined and learn the discipline that comes from sport, learn to interact with each other, play instead of fight, run down the murder rate, get them out of gangs, because that is what sports brings to the platform. We don't hear them discussing that in Parliament. We hear a bad man prime minister say, me not afraid of nobody.
The Prime Minister say him buy 2 taxi. So I make him money. Lord.
Now, gentlemen, we speak about money and everything. A question here now. Let's go on the track for a minute. Track and field. This year, we are going to have in excess of over 50 institutions from Jamaica traveling to Pennsylvania for the Penn Relays. It's around 54 institutions. The colleges make up about 5 or 6 of them. So it is somewhere around 47, 48 high schools
High schools.
that travel from Jamaica to come here to compete at the Penn Relays. It's going to be, including officials and everything, it's going to be around 600, between 550 and 600 individuals that will be coming up. That's including officials and, whoever they bring up. And we talk about money. And Trevor mentioned before that something about money. And there is money in the Caribbean somewhere, because I do not understand how all of these schools can find the funds to come up here, and it's very expensive. John, I leave that to you now to just tell us your thoughts on that.
Well, it's the alumni associations who fund a lot of these schools coming here. Team Jamaica Bickle also plays a role in providing meals and other facilities for the high schools coming here. And as a matter of fact, I will say this: I do remember when Team Jamaica Bickle was being formed way back in, I think it's about 30 something years ago. Dale, at the time I was with LIB, and Erwin Clear had come to me and was talking to me about it. And as a matter of fact, when I had that program on a Friday and Penn Relays was on, Erwin would come on and give us an update. But the funds, of course, not only some of it, as I say, it's the alumni and Team Jamaica Bickle and some of the major Caribbean corporations here who play a role in funding the schools that are coming up and providing for them, And you mentioned that figure of about 600 between athletes and officials coming. And who is benefiting from all that? Penn Relays. Because Caribbean people turn out in droves that weekend to come and see their Caribbean athletes perform. And so, and it's a good thing. Sometimes I do wonder if we could get more from Penn Relays for our athletes coming here, instead of just medals and watches, But it's good exposure for our athletes, Dale. It's part of the international development of our athletes, because some of them go on to excel at the senior level. And this is good exposure for them from a junior level. That when they get to the senior level, they are used to it. Like the starting, getting down to start, the crowd, whatever, the competition. But as I say, it's mostly alumni who fund this, or I think provide most of the funds for the athletes. And alumni want to see their youngsters coming year after year, so they will fund them. And especially if a certain school have a couple of top athletes, they will put up the funds to have them come here to run.
Okay, so Sir Trevor, approximately 54 institutions, high schools and tertiary institutions come here. And somebody pays for this. And so over 600 athletes and officials that come. And if you do the math, you will realize that it more than likely total cost is over $1 million US. Taking everything into consideration, Sir Professor, when you look at those numbers, what's your reaction to that?
Well, Brother Dale, if I had my way to cut the fat, let get down to the bone, I would call for a boycott of the pen relays. Let us see what is the value of Jamaica participating in the pen relays. I would call for a boycott this year of the pen relays. It's a bit late for that now. But let us see what the value is. Okay? Because I will say this, that champs contributes more to the development of athletic track in Jamaica than the pen relay does. The pen relay reaps the benefit. And yes, we might send 600 athletes there. But I tell you this, not more than 100 get scholarships. Okay? So it's not like everybody come into the restaurant and all of them are without money. And out of appreciation, the restaurant owner say, well, I'm going to feed 10% to you. Say, but all of us hungry. I know. When our children come back from pen relays, do you know who get recognized for being in America? Silver. Well, gold, silver, bronze. Paper get no recognition. When you come off the plane, silver is hugged by the Ministry of Sports. Our girls did well. 1, 2, 3. Even if 4 is a Jamaican. Okay? Even if 4 is a Jamaican. Listen, we go through this across the platform. We have reggae artists who are top billion and they're homeless now. Okay? Homeless. Can't pay rent and can't buy food. And that is a big brand out of Jamaica, you know, reggae music. Do you have a pension plan for every man who put a track on the airwaves? That there's a contribution made to his future? Do you have a plan in place for everyone who leaves the Jamaica to represent the country? That there's something being invested in their future? Is that a part of the benefits that they're getting? No, I never win silver, gold, or bronze, but because I participate in, my name is in the National Pension Trust for Athletes. Okay? It might only be a medical plan. So you say once they represent the Highland, they have lifetime medical coverage. So now a child wants to go to represent the island abroad, because when they come back, Mama says, thank you, darling, I don't have to worry about your medical coverage anymore. When you go to UWI and you cough, they say, come right in, you're covered. Okay? What do they have to show for it? We talk about those who excel at the top. Every tree that has flowers at the top, it's the roots that provides the nourishment to the flowers. Okay? They don't know what they're doing. I would like them to prove to me and the other fans who are concerned about this malaise that we're going through, that they know what they're doing. I'm not saying that they didn't go to school and have papers on the wall. I'm not saying they can't count, that the 2 and 2 is 4. But if I ask them if John's hair is grey or black and they tell me it's pink, they can't see.
Thank you, Professor. And Sir John, I will give you an opportunity for your closing remarks. We have covered quite a few subjects, and just, whichever one you want to zero in on, but your closing remarks.
Well, interesting that Trevor just mentioned about boycotting pen relays. You know, I remember years ago, I wandered out a little bit loud, I think on one of my programs. If some of our high schools were to go to the Drake relays, which is run the same weekend as pen relays, if it would, if that would change the um, acceptance or whatever is being done for teams coming to pen relays, if if they would be regarded in a different light, now that they know they have competition in getting the services of Jamaican teams coming to the pen relays, because that is what it really is services that we are providing. And fannies coming through the turnstiles. So, I just wondered out loud if a couple of our leading high schools too were to say, "Oh, let's try to go to the Drake relays this year instead of the pen relays," and just to see what kind of response it would generate. Mark you, it will also mean that they might not get the kind of support going to the Drake relays that they get at Penn relays, because it's a much further distance, especially for the New Yorkers, to travel would have to travel. But as I said, development comes in different forms, and it's not only starting at the grassroots level and um, coaching or teaching our youngsters the proper methods of how to bat, how to bowl, maybe a leg break or an half break or whatever. Um, Development also comes in the venues that they have to perform in or perform on in terms of field, and what kind of care your athletes get, because as I was speaking with Anthony Davis on my sports corner a couple of weeks ago, and I say, "Boy, Anthony, it's amazing deal when I went to champs in 1959, as opposed to what happens today at champs at the National Stadium. The medical care, the psychological care that athletes get, it's just night and day to when I went to champs at Sabina Park in 1959. So development, as I said, takes place in different forms. And it's not just getting an athlete to go sub 10 or a young lady to go sub 11. It's more than that. And, hopefully we get there as Jamaica eventually, and the Caribbean on the larger scale. But the growth, I suppose, we just have to bear the pain during the growth period, and hopefully we get to that point where our athletes not only are properly supported, but properly developed along the way. The development process that takes place along the way is improved, and that's my closing thoughts for tonight.
Thank you, John. And Sir Professor, your closing thoughts?
Well, I would like to think that sports is more like network marketing, okay? Where you say that every level benefits, every level get a benefit, even though as it goes to the top, everybody going along the plane shares in the benefit. Right now, for me, it's like a Ponzi scheme, where you're using the bottom to feed the top, and the top gets the benefit and nothing comes downstream. That is why we talk about the lack of development. So we hear people talking about it's all about the money. It's all about the money. The money for whom? The money for whom? For the Ponzi scheme at the top? You are talking about the guy who's picking the fruit, and you don't care about the guy who is watering the roots and fertilizing the roots and mulching the roots. But you talk about how great the fruits are. No. I would like them to realize that everyone in the chain Everyone in the chain contributes to the strength of the chain, and the strength of the chain is dependent on the weakest link. And when primary school children are hungry, can't go to school, can't hold a cricket bat, can't get a soccer ball, you can't have a strong national team or a strong West Indies team because the roots are barefooted and they need to play in, we're playing track cleats. They have to practice to play in cleats from down here. They need to know that the chain extend all the way into our community to the unborn babies. Mothers must have proper nutrition to produce healthy children, must have proper jobs so they can take care of their children and spend time with their children. That is the responsibility of government. It doesn't mean government is going to do it, but government ensures that it gets done. So if I'm working for this company who wants to come and invest in Jamaica, I will say to you, what is your minimum wage in America? And you say, well, New York is $16. You open a company in Jamaica, you're going to pay New York rates. We don't have slaves down here. Okay? We don't have slaves down here. When you're buying a car from America and it's coming to Jamaica, do they charge you cheaper in Jamaica because you have a less of an income level in Jamaica? Is a Mercedes Benz in Germany worth $30,000 in America? Is it only worth 15 in Jamaica? So why is it therefore that we are supposed to get less for our product, our service, and our people when they do and contribute the same in any platform where they are? Why? These are dangerous questions. And as Bob Marley liked to say, they don't like us to smoke the herb because it makes us too bold.
Okay, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough, so I'll just thank you as much as I can. It was a very interesting conversation. We started off with World Athletics taking what appears to be a principled stance, and we have to educate ourselves to understand what the rules and regulations are. Many of us should be familiar with it, even from the football point of view, with the English players who qualify to play for Jamaica. They have to do it based on ancestry. There has to be something there where you say, I am Jamaican, or I can be a Jamaican. We know it's a little bit different where you get naturalized citizens, etc. But World Athletics has taken, I believe, a principled stance, and we'll see where that leads to. Cricket, the Kingsmen, very important. Are we just selling ourselves short? Are we looking out for our actual development, investment into our country and to build our country? The cost of a car in the USA is less than the cost of the same car in Jamaica. So if you're buying, let's say, a Honda Civic in the USA, you may pay $25,000 for it. If you buy that same car in Jamaica, you're going to pay somewhere around 38, 40,000 US dollars for it. So the dollar to dollar value is simply not on equal terms. And when we make these deals, we have a product and we need to represent and demand what we are worth. I see the president of World Athletics, champs. Our champs is his favorite event, and he proves it by being there. Carifta Games, he proves it by being there. He says it's the second event he marks off on his calendar where I must attend this event, and champs is ahead of Carifta. So we have to know our worth, and we have to demand what it is that we are worth. On the world stage, we go West Indies 4-day cricket. Here again, we see we are being shortchanged. We have 3 ODIs and 3 T20s coming up against Sri Lanka, and they are telling us that the 4-day tournament is being used to prep them for those games. They streamline it to go into that. It does not make any sense. Tell us that you're broke and you're looking to save money, and this is why you do it, and that's the end of the story. And finally, pen relays. Again, gentlemen, you raise all the wonderful points. I just wonder if 54 institutions from Jamaica actually deserve to come here. And is it worth that money, the amount of money that we are spending to come here for some of those schools? And I'll close with this, that 39 girls' schools scored at least 1 point at champs. 39. Of that 39, only 16 of them scored more than 20 points. With the boys, 38 teams scored points, and of the 38, only 13 of them scored more than 20 points. So as much as we are top heavy with talent, is there a part of us that's coming to pen relays as, if you're going to say to me it's for exposure, then okay, but don't tell me it is for something else, because then you're going to have to tell me why 100 scouts are down in the national stadium scouting the athletes. Are they wasting time doing it? So somewhere along the line, for the sake of money, when I hear that a netball team cannot go to a championships because the government does not have enough money to send them there, I can understand that, because I know to get the teams up here for pen relays, it comes back down to alumni associations that get them up here. It's not government, it's not Ministry of Sport, it's not ISA, it's not anybody except people contributing to it. So, gentlemen, I thank you very much, and we will continue our discussion. And Professor, I'll have you close us out completely.
Again, I say thank you to our panelists, but most of all, I say thank you to our fans who supports the platforms that we addressed. That even in the face of questions that are not answered by us, that are still open, we know that they are still supporting our sports platform. No matter how many complaints we might have about performance, it is our supporters who are complaining. They are not leaving us. The best communication sometimes is from those who complain, because they are paying attention to us. Those who are silent, we need you to be more voiceful. Okay? Tell us what we are doing wrong. Tell us what we are doing right. Tell us that we need to do something if we are not doing it. Because of you, those who are doing what they do continue to do it. And I would like our fans to know that we are going to support our athletes in thick or thin. And to our athletes, I want you to know that we are going to take on your fight. Okay? So as our host says, you get full value for your service. Okay? And sometimes we have to take a step backwards before we can move forward. But we are committed to making sure that in our West Indies community and Caribbean community, athletics does what it is supposed to do. Shape the future of our children, give them the skills, the discipline and the social skills to make them better citizens. So again, we thank you for tuning in. Please share, like, and comment. And again, remember, Secretary to the Cricket Hall of Fame, the Honorable Dale Brown, and journalist extraordinaire, none other than the Honorable John Melbourne. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to our next session with you very shortly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Dale.
Thank you, Sir Trevor, and thanks, John, again.
Mm-hmm.